Advent of data analytics and data engineering will begin in construction.
Then I decide which program to use to process this data and in what format to get the result.
Which I didn't understand, that is why the data is closed. Where did BIM even come from? Why can't we just work with data and allow this data to move seamlessly between different systems, bypassing additional BIM programs or any additional obstacles that CAD vendors might create for us?
I would like to know what is currently trending in Europe and America.
These are the top 3 cases in the world where people are looking for solutions like ours. We will come to that. How Accenture, SAP, Microsoft, or all the major companies in the world operate today. With just one click, you can actually turn all these projects into one big table, into one large data frame.
But at the same time, you do not support the organization building smart.
And the person told me over the phone the story of the creation of IFC. In fact, behind most of the CAD products we work with, there is a database. And the construction company has no idea where this data is leaking to. There is a decentralization happening. Here the client is free to choose for themselves what tools and platforms he will use for working with data.
My name is Avitik, and today we are joined remotely by Artem Boyko, who is a highly skilled data specialist. Tell us about your new project. Please tell us about data-driven construction.
This project is about the important need to highlight the topic of data analytics and data engineering in our industry. Unfortunately, very few people are currently engaged in data analysis. We are engaged in converting data from various versions of Revit and IFC into highly organized and detailed manner. Besides BIM, there are hundreds of different systems in any company. That is, we essentially simplify all the data and allow this data to move seamlessly between different systems, bypassing additional BIM programs or any additional obstacles that CAD vendors might create for us. I want to talk about all of this that is on the new platform and essentially make it like an open source product where I will talk about various specific use cases from 4D, 5D, and also integration.
So it's generally about information management, about extracting data from models and somehow thus extracting certain data sets in order to meet the relevant and necessary specific needs and requirements of the client.
Yes, there are a lot of needs, meaning the number of cases is in the billions. So we can create a product that would be suitable for 10 or 100 companies. We provide a converter that helps to bring the data into a format that specialists in the industry or sector without BIM knowledge can work with. We are indeed actually engaged in consulting and refining some solutions on the client side using commonly used and accessible tools without BIM tools.
Are these products web applications or desktop solutions?
It is also an offline solution, a standalone app where we can work without internet access or without the need to install Revit. We get the data, which allow us to work without the need to resort to Autodesk tools and other similar software.
And how does it look technically? For example, if I am in the role as a client, I come with my model, upload the model to your platform, and somehow
you just download the converter without the need to install. You can get a table from your Revit or IFC project, which you can process on any platform, starting with Excel, Power BI, and other tools.
So I get the entire database entirely, right? Then I decide which program to use to process this data and in what format to get the result.
Correct. We provide examples of how data can be used. We recently had a very useful plugin for Excel where we can get data directly from Revit and IFC. There are a huge number of data tools like Excel, Power BI, Google Data Studio, Tableau, or other tools that are already used in other sectors of the economy. Our data just fits these platforms, and we don't have a separate product, which we would impose on our clients. Here the client is free to choose for themselves what tools and platforms he will use for working with data.
I understand that you have clients all over the world. Describe your main clients.
Those who have more than 3 Revit licenses, or those clients who specifically want to work with the data from Revit or IFC. That is, in Revit we have stored a huge amount of information, and those specialists who need to get information from this data in a simple and straightforward form, these people, these specialists and their companies are our clients. These are the top 3 cases in the world where people are looking for solutions like ours. This is data quality checking. The quality of data from Revit or from projects, or even from any databases at all. This is absolutely the first step that is necessary in any processes. Although in principle the process of checking such structured flat data is considered a very, very primitive process in itself. In other sectors of the economy, I think there aren't even any questions about which programs to use. The second case is standard data visualization. Most specialists need to understand the numbers in the project. Few are interested in specific numbers or letters, and everyone wants to look at graphs, charts, and diagrams to gain some insights from them. These insights actually lead to the fact that we can build more quickly, make decisions in the company, and these quick decisions ultimately lead to that the company is clearly becoming undeniably competitive. The faster you start making decisions based on the data, that the more likely you are to survive the next crisis, which is actually starting now, and we are already in it in the construction industry.
By data quality, do you mean just the completeness of parameters and attributes, or the correctness of attributes?
That is, in fact, it can be simplified into a table with 3 columns, where in the first column we have the type category that we are going to check, and in the second column we have the parameters that we check in this category or type, and in the third we have the values that should be in this parameter. Here, in fact, our data is in the table. We have requirements, meaning these rules are in the form of a table, and we need to compare them. That is to check the table through another table and provide these verification data in the form of someone wants it as a dashboard, someone as a document, someone as a table. So here again we come to the point where there are literally millions of various different and multiple and numerous ways the client wants to see this.
And the original models that are supposed to come to your platform, can they be in any format?
So for us, all projects look the same, meaning there is absolutely no difference whether it's IFC version 2.3 or Revit 2015. This allows us to bring all projects essentially into one table. Even if you have thousands of different formats, various different versions on the server, with just one click, you can actually turn all these projects into one big table, into one large data frame, with millions of rows from which you can get graphs, charts, and derive insights from them,
which are necessary for decision making. Artem, in your expert opinion, who are your main competitors in the global market?
We don't really compete with products. We do not provide a final solution. We do not create a final product suitable for 100 companies. For 200 companies, we provide data. In fact, our competitors or even helpers are data analytics, data engineers. In other sectors of the economy, specialists work with the same cases: inspections, visualizations, building dashboards, and documents. The exact same processes. And our data is no different from that data that these specialists work with. In other words, we just come to any company and say, if you have a data analyst, if we provide the data analyst can handle it themselves. Build thousands of different applications on them. In fact, I strongly believe that someday in the near future, we will undoubtedly and absolutely come to a model where specialists are as consultants, meaning we come to a company and help them build the custom solutions that need to be used. Unfortunately, building a product which would be applied to everyone in the industry is actually, I think, utopian today.
As far as I understand you, correct me if I'm wrong, overall you have this kind of ideology that everything being done in construction right now is essentially data management, data arrays. It's all like to adopt all this in construction, in development, and apply the same approaches.
Right? That's correct. Here we don't have any differences between those data with whom we work. For example, if we are talking about financial products, our basic element is the person, which has parameters. In other systems, I don't know, in the agricultural industry, the element is some piece of land with its own ID. In our industry, exactly the same. The same data format, our basic unit is a construction element, an element on the construction site or later during the installation phase. We come to the basic element, and there are no differences here. How we will consider a person in financial, a product or some construction element of our database. Instead of creating this new BIM industry, we can simply apply these tools to our...
If you receive DWG drawings, you will extract something from them.
Just an hour ago I was talking with a company in Saudi Arabia. They are interested in obtaining data from PDF documents. That is, they say, yes, we have models, we have DWG, that is drawings, we have a PDF. We want to carefully check annotations or text legends on the drawings to ensure the information is accurate and thorough, such as dimensions, labels, and notes. If there is a model, it's better. A model is a database. A model is simply a database filled using a special graphical user interface. It could be Revit, it could be SketchUp, but in fact, behind most of the CAD products we work with, there is a database, the same like Oracle or SAP systems. That is, we simply populate it in Revit using special actions and techniques with a mouse with special additional buttons. but we are populating the database. The number of systems construction, 99% of all systems are potential SQL databases, Postgres, MySQL, Oracle, MariaDB, these are all tables. And the same CAD programs are just like databases. Just those we currently cannot access. With converters like ours, we allow access to the database. So there is no barriers to absolutely and seamlessly connecting these databases and linking these systems with each other without using special API wrappers or any other additional tools.
Can you explain the concept of this pipeline in detail with a specific example, step by step, for better understanding?
What is a pipeline? A pipeline is a process. How thinks the data processing manager? The problem with the industry is that we have enormous variability. Processes. For example, if we take the creation of some calculations in each company roughly, this process will vary greatly from company to company. Furthermore, we will decompose this process into smaller parts. But these processes are structured differently. One company starts by grouping by some parameter, then attaches some data with another table. Another company starts the same pipeline differently. Unfortunately, we cannot create a product that fits to everyone. It is necessary to explain to the data specialists that it's essentially a pipeline you need to actually construct from open blocks. In fact, we generally have them from other industries and assemble this pipeline into a single chain, where at the output we have some data. And in the middle, there is a pipeline that is unique for each company, different. And here is an explanation of how to build this pipeline, how to create documents.
Well, this platform is being created purely on your initiative, right?
I decided to create this from scratch. I have accumulated a lot of experience, and right now my goal is to gather all this information into some logical sequence so that people can start explaining and showing these tools. We have already had clients who came and asked to create a proof of concept for these pipelines for building dashboards, documents. In just 1 week, a BIM manager, he is so passionate about this idea of building pipelines through which documents can be constructed to automate tasks. Within a week, he is already creating such pipelines himself, without our help. There's indeed nothing complicated about it, so there's no need for any special knowledge of API. All these tools have been used and popular for a long time. The programming language today is Python, and Python has many libraries. But Python owes its popularity to one library called Pandas. For comparison, the library is downloaded about 9 million times a day today. That means only one library is frequently downloaded around approximately 9 million times each and every single day worldwide. The unique and incredible feature of this particular library is that it greatly assists with a single line of code, for example, to group data in this Revit project. Imagine we have a Revit project with hundreds of thousands of elements. With a single line of code, we can quickly create a table by types where the quantities will be collected. The same functionality is described using BIM tools with the help of hundreds of lines of code. I compared this using IFC OpenShell. It takes about 100 lines of code. Using Python in Revit, it's about 40 lines of code. Here, with the help of modern libraries like Pandas, it's a single line of code. And that which can also be replaced using ChatGPT today. Please group this Revit project for me by category, for example. And please kindly document to me in the second, third column the amount and volume of the grouped elements. Please kindly ensure this is accurate. 2 sentences that give you a 100% quality result. Within milliseconds, you just simply get what you currently get with 17 clicks in Revit. These are very easy tools that help quickly understand the data and visualize it, and gain some insights.
Currently, we are using various data tools to manage and analyze information, but as we look forward to the next few years, what do you think about how these tools might evolve and change? What will be in demand, and what, in your opinion, should we focus on right now? What should we invest in?
It's no wonder that data analytics and data engineering are now on such a hype. That is indeed, specialists in our construction industry need to understand that soon. Advent of data analytics and data engineering will begin in construction. The faster specialist who works in Revit today and will understand that there is analytics, Python, Pandas, simple tools, and he will see that everything done in other sectors of the economy is applicable to us. I consider this definitely promising. There won't be any final products that can be used in more than 100 companies worldwide. It is impossible today to create a product that will be interesting to everyone. It might be possible to create a product that can be sold in 2, in 3 companies, 10, 20, but not in 1,000. We will come to that. how Accenture, SAP, Microsoft, or all the major companies in the world operate today. They are engaged in pipelines. They come to the client, ask them exactly what their specific input data is and what you need to get at the end of the process. And then they take 70% open source blocks. SAP, Microsoft. It is 70% open source today. They are building a pipeline between input and output data. They gather blocks from open source applications and build a pipeline for the client, such as a custom solution being sold, a final solution. I believe that the future in the construction industry will look exactly the same, without any differences. We definitely won't have separate programs trying to cover absolutely everything. In any country, in any village, there will be someone who can come to the construction site, and having an open source toolkit will be able to build a comprehensive pipeline for any company or organization. Some custom solution from A to Z without using third-party applications.
You communicate from different countries, which is fascinating. I would like to know what is currently trending in Europe and America. What are the trending directions of development in the world of BIM and in the world of digitalization in general?
Here you can talk about several cases, such as the following examples, that describe the entire industry in a very detailed manner. The main questions that often arise in construction companies, they are dedicated to data. For example, if we are a small construction company, today we face a variety of different tools and applications. One factory supplies us with one application, another factory supplies another application. With all this, a foreman has to works with hundreds of different applications. All this data leaks somewhere, and the construction company has no idea where this data is leaking to and who might potentially be using it. If it's a software developer, especially a big one, then they are actually collecting all the information about you, starting with the prices you use in your calculations or the prices you use in collaboration with their respective counterparts. This is the crucial information that today is considered an advantage, is the reason why the company survives at all. And losing such extremely crucial information is something no company can afford. Control over data. This issue interests everyone. Last week I was in Munich, spoke at a conference dedicated to data democratization. For example, this conference was dedicated to specialists and construction companies. Agreed that a data infrastructure platform is absolutely and undoubtedly essential. There will be kickbacks from vendors or software developers. There will be specialists or companies that will be responsible for the data, and they will create such a marketplace application, but all of this will be decoupled from vendors. This will be controlled by the state or a specific region, for example. The data will remain within, for example, Bavaria or within Germany, not going through some Amazon servers to the servers of other countries, where all this construction data, military facilities or just basic projects will leak to other companies. All this is such competitive information nobody wants to lose. This is a problem. And regions, individual countries and companies begin to think about how to store data, how to process it in some kind of mode to prevent software developers or CAD vendors from accessing this data.
The first direction, which is trendy, is working with data and data storage. In the field of data storage and management, right? The organization of, let's say, a common data environment, right, where this data is stored. And if you outsource the servers, it are not stored under your jurisdiction. That's right.
At the level of individual EU countries, initiatives are currently being created that focus on the creation platforms where the responsible parties are not some developers, but committees or communities. It will be a kind of association where everyone pays a membership fee and has their own membership. That is, no one has full rights or complete access to all the information on the platform. This is an initiative that I think will develop in all areas. There is a decentralization happening, meaning that previously there was centralization, where large CAD vendors tried to create some kind of storage on Amazon servers. And already at this point, at this step, German companies they don't like their data is stored in Ireland. They work with Autodesk, they store data on BIM 360. But questions arise, that is, I am currently storing client data. That is very important information. And such extremely crucial questions are becoming more and more. And it all comes to the point where associations are being created.
Artem, could you please tell us a bit more about LinkedIn? You have approximately 30,000 followers there. And each post there gets approximately around 50,000 views. Tell us, how did you manage to gather a user community? Did you have any kind of promotion strategy or something like that, perhaps?
It all started in 2019. I got into big data and machine learning. That's when I initially first started trying to work with considerable volumes of data and significant amounts of information. I was then describing and visualizing, for example, the permission to meet in San Francisco. There is a data set with approximately 2 million records of permits in San Francisco. It was extremely interesting to work with this data set and visualizing it using multiple charts and maps, how the sum of some work volumes looks by prices. So it was indeed definitely all very interesting. And I never thought we could use these tools in our industry. In 2019, I was already working with these tools. These are tools that amaze. You will dive into a simple world where no knowledge of programming languages is needed. I switched to LinkedIn, and since then I've been consistently writing posts, and it attracts a significant amount of attention. People subscribe, and thus a certain mass of followers has grown.
Among your followers, there are even some very cool, ordinary ones. Specialists, the main managers from Autodesk, from Graphisoft too, right?
There were very interesting and comprehensive discussions regarding the series of articles dedicated to BIM development and lobbying. I wrote a series of 7 in-depth, detailed, and comprehensive articles where I extensively and thoroughly discussed the historical roots and origins, and everyone who was mentioned in these articles, starting from Autodesk, ending with Jonathan Ingram, who is considered the father of BIM. That is, there were many debates in these. There were articles with hundreds of comments. There were articles after which wrote strategic directors, that is Autodesk or other major graphic software companies, and asked to correct some information. If I'm wrong, correct me, there were no problems here. That is, this received a huge response.
Yes, just very recently indeed, I was rereading those 7 articles. And honestly, I was truly and deeply amazed how deeply you delved and how you came straight from the very basics about what BIM is, where BIM definitely came from. And I also really learned a lot of very new things for myself. So even about the incredible story about how Steve Jobs somehow, in a remarkable way, sent Apple Macintoshes to developers in Hungary in the 1980s. So you conducted an extremely detailed and comprehensive, thorough, and it's indeed very interesting to find out how much time it took you and whether you worked on all of this alone or if someone helped you.
I wrote the first articles entirely by myself, meaning it was indeed important for me to show that behind such products like Revit are not backed by Autodesk. They consist of the specialists from St. Petersburg. In part 2, I was getting some insights. People called very prominent and well-known specialists, indeed, for example, from Germany, and wrote, Artem, you wrote, very interesting, provocative. Please listen to the creation story, for example. I was involved in the creation of the IFC format with Mr. Obermeyer. I signed an NDA with Autodesk, so I can't share these stories. But I'll tell you now, and maybe you can share this story a bit in your articles. And the person told me over the phone the story of the creation of IFC, that is, some trivial details about the specific additional details of how he registered and the specific circumstances under which Obermeyer first met Patrick McLeamy, how this registration later went to America, and how this format eventually came under the roof of Autodesk. And after the second and third articles, a stream of insights began meeting people. They wrote in private messages, sharing some interesting information. And when I started making the map, it's clear that I was already starting the map on such a scale. Started with 2 or 3 campaigns. Gradually, users began comment on some individual stories, some campaigns themselves. And this information, it came from the comments.
After the publication of the latest article, I strongly believe that it was approximately around the end of the year 2021, if I'm not mistaken. How do you see it? What is the main benefit you got from this series of articles?
This research consists of 7 articles. I was definitely evaluating some things with an amateur's eye, but seeing the comments and reviews on some of them, I concluded I'm moving in the right direction. The main benefit from these articles, and it's a huge number of new acquaintances, that is, people wrote from Japan, from Spain, translated articles into different languages. There are also a lot of new comments, feedback, including suggestions and critiques. It was very useful and insightful. So starting from the beginning, where I had a question about data privacy. The first question, which I didn't understand, that is why the data is closed. Where did BIM even come from? Why can't we just work with data? Popular platforms used today by Google, IBM, all the major companies in the world offer these products and provide them for free as open source. And here's why we can't use them, couldn't use them back then. It was a question for me. And today, I have already found this answer, which I want to share in the future on the new platform.
After reading the series of articles with additional information and additional insights and additional details, I definitely and clearly understand what motivated you to start the project. And am I right in understanding that you generally support the ideology of openness? data interoperability. But at the same time, you do not support the organization Building Smart, which is involved in the development of the IFC format?
The article came about because I was sent for the OpenBeam certification by Building Smart, but I don't understand what we are paying for. It cost 3,000 euros, I think, 3 days. And I was really so very outraged by this whole OpenBeam topic back then, I decided to write about the whole situation and the first article. After that, a huge number of people messaged me privately and in my contacts, who are not so much organizers as indeed participants in various chapters and rooms at Building Smart. They told me how the work works. What it basically comes down to, in short, is lobbying for the interests of individual companies, starting from CAD manufacturers to producers of certain materials and equipment. If you have enough influence, you can push some of your own elements into this classification, which will later serve as a classifier that will eventually become a useful classifier. For instance, last year, I had a conversation with the CEO of a German company, and he was just in Berlin, a meeting about the development of BIM at the ministerial level. And he told me that unfortunately, what they say about OpenBIM, no one is interested in the construction itself. Only companies have a say, who will choose their own interests. But unfortunately, everything I've heard boils down to what essentially and definitely amounts to lobbying interests. This is not about open data, and this is not fundamentally about open pipelines, which are essential for efficient data flow. It's completely different from traditional methods. If we take IFC, if someone wants to consider a pipe as a line, someone else wants to see it as 2 points. So this can be completely removed, meaning it shouldn't concern us. The main focus is on creating a classifier for elements of the entire construction world. And here's the question, that is it possible in principle to create a classifier that would be suitable for all elements, that is for everything in the world? From my point of view, this is firstly possibly such a utopian idea, in my opinion perhaps. And secondly, there are actually an extremely large number of companies here trying to push into this classifier. They're elements which in principle are not needed by other countries. As a result, this company today will be establishing standards for process creation, standards for classification, but everyone will classify elements differently. The task faces autonomous driving. Google or other companies involved in autonomous driving, they also have the task of classifying elements. But none of them today say that I will create an organization, how we should classify the elements that we get through LiDARs or cameras. It would also be utopian to think that Google would impose on us through its organization a classifier of how we will recognize elements through photos or through LiDAR. We have the same situation. We have a model, which is the same reality, only it's already a constructed 3D reality, an ideal one, where we are trying to classify elements. We don't need LiDARs like cars do, or we need additional photographic images. That is, we already have this relevant data in the form of specific elements. The only question is in the classification of these elements. And here we need an organization that will tell us how we should classify elements. If we can automatically classify elements through LiDAR or through a point cloud, why we cannot classify the same information automatically from our models in which the elements have a perfect shape, meaning there are ideal geometric elements already present. The question is a matter of time, and literally I believe that within 5 years we will get there. The tools will emerge to help us automatically classify this element outside of, depending on whether there is a classifier from Building Smart or not.
Well, look, you have experience in creating a startup, so please describe the main steps. So if some specialist is indeed watching us and has some great idea, or perhaps he wants to implement it, so describe what steps need to be taken initially first and what mistakes to avoid.
You need to start with some kind of idea. The more attention this idea gets, the more feedback we will have at the beginning of this. The faster the person working on this idea will clearly understand where they need to go. It's definitely absolutely impossible to develop something for years without getting feedback. And today, the faster and the wider a diverse group of individuals who will tell you what fits and what doesn't fit properly at all, then faster. You will move forward developing this idea, because an idea is good, but an idea alone is nothing. We understand there are a lot of ideas, but the implementation itself from idea to product is undoubtedly an extremely long journey where feedback plays the primary role. The faster and the more specialists there are, and the more feedback they provide on the product. Of course, if the product is intended for the whole world, it's necessary to go to some platforms and try to attract attention with some content. Maybe not to the idea itself, but to their own persona, to create some kind of group, and then within this group you can certainly work on some of your ideas. Without testing these hypotheses and guesses, it will be impossible to move forward.
And what do you think when creating a product in the early stages, perhaps? Should we develop a product right away that can be used in all countries, or first, let's say, to create a localized version specifically designed strategically for a particular country, and then subsequently expand it on a larger scale?
If the goal is to build a product for the world, start from all over the world. Because just being in the bubble of one country, even developing within Germany some product, think that it will be needed by someone abroad. Outside of Germany, it's unrealistic. So you need to try to find contacts right away, immediately. In Alaska, that is in any remote places in a small town, you can always find specialists using LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, there is a form where you can search for people, in principle, in any company in the world with which you can talk, with whom you can get some feedback.
What about the battle between closed beam and open beam? In your view, what's your opinion? Which ideology do you think will indeed, in the end, ultimately really be victorious?
Over the past 2 years, there has definitely been a trend where people who have already experimented with OpenBeam understand. What if we are talking about data quality, for example, money or some cost-related characteristics and other factors? The quality of the IFC format is insufficient for use in ERP systems. And this is where most experts from OpenBeam are starting to transition to closed BIM solutions. Work with IFC, export IFC from ArchiCAD, use ArchiCAD in ERP, this will be great. You can export IFC from Trimble and work in Trimble's ERP without losing quality. Sadly, you will not be able to export IFC from ArchiCAD and work with it into this format in Trimble ERP. So here's the catch. The person realizes that in the system OpenBeam, not so open, and actually the quality of the format leads us to the point that unfortunately we have to return to the solutions from the vendor from which they were obtained. Because only it will guarantee the quality needed at the 4D and 5D stages, and what will be used in ERP systems or KFM systems.
I'm out of questions. Perhaps, is there anything important you have? Some kind of very important message to the viewers? You want to convey something about yourself?
Data analytics and data engineering are starting to make significant inroads into our industries in many different ways. That we will definitely start using these tools, it's only a matter of time. In automotive industry, the goal is to achieve autonomous driving. This will be the goal of automatic project classification and automatic cost estimation. Then today, in fact, the client calls a taxi. A construction company takes the client in the back seat with driver at the wheel. A construction company that helps the client go from point A, from their idea to point B, already realized building some project. But today we need this construction company or whoever will to approximately estimate the project, who tells us where we need to move. Perhaps in the near future, without using companies, we as a client will be able to quickly, within seconds, to understand how much material we will need, roughly how much this project will cost us, how it should look like. This is the future we are moving towards. This is the ultimate point. Right now it is unattainable because we don't have the data. The first stage we need to focus on, this is data acquisition. After acquiring the data, we will move on to data analysis. Data is about creating graphs, some charts, data visualization, essentially dashboards, visuals. That's the goal for why we collect data. Because from images we can make decisions. Images help a person make quick decisions based on this data. Not from a data table, not by columns of information about some text, but just by the picture. Red, green. Green, we move forward. I made a decision. This gives us the opportunity, move forward. That is, we will eventually come to the point where the company will be collecting data, will generate extensive and significant big data. From big data, it will move to analytics, to machine learning someday if there are similar projects. With a simple example, what are big data and machine learning in construction? Let's imagine. We have similar projects from which we can collect data based on parameters. We gather them from various sources. It will be a documents, scanned JPEG format, building information model. We gather into a data table where we have rows. In the first column, we have the project name and hundreds of its parameters that change from project to project in various ways. But the names of these parameters typically do not change and remain consistent throughout the entire process. Let's take hundreds of schools. Gather school number 1 in some city. Hundreds of parameters. Width, number of classes, number of students. let's take 1,000 parameters and we will know the price of this school. Take the second project, take thousands of params and write down the cost. Take the third one and eventually we will gather big data on all schools. Maybe large companies have this data. That is, they are already doing this. So if we gather big data on all schools, for a future school project, we can new thousands of parameters, say, without creating a project. How much will it cost, right? It's just statistics. That is, we will just take the number of parameters. The more parameters, the more accurate the cost of the project will be. Without creating a project, knowing its 1,000 parameters, we will be able to quickly say how much it will cost, how much material we might need, people and overall resources for construction. Today we don't have this project history database. Large companies are starting to collect this data, they are gathering big data, and someday they will use this data to make informed decisions and drive innovation in various fields. They will start applying machine learning. Once we get these relevant and comprehensive databases, that is, we get open and important data, I think construction will start to change. The approaches to processes, we see calculations, how we work with data, all of this will change. We will take a look at the industry as a whole. Our error in cost estimation can reach significant levels on large projects. We are talking today about an error of 300% on large projects, and if machine learning gives us even a 50% error, then it is already some kind of data source, especially if it is automated and we can extract data without involving any third-party companies. We have Design Institute, which states the cost. We have a second perspective from the model, which we can create, and a third one, some internal one. So we will have 3 points. Perspectives which will lead us to this approximate project evaluation. Unfortunately today, we don't have it. At the initial stage, of course, it will be used as assistance. This is not the tool that will replace the estimation department, but will you choose the machine learning model yourself? Or you will turn to the estimates department, where the average age is 20 or 30 years old. For example, a new wave of estimators might come along who don't have all the experience that was there before, accumulated in 20 years. Will they estimate, or can the model estimate for you? An automatic project for you. Here we might soon definitely indeed feel the difference.
Artem, thanks for finding the time. I think the subscribers will find it very interesting to listen. Friends, make sure to definitely give a like if you enjoyed the video and leave a comment and share.